right, welcome back as we continue our panel discussion, and Congressman Garrett Graves is here. Look, folks, during the break, I wish you were here. There's a lot of lobbying going on, and everybody turns to Garrett and says, look, here's what we need. But that's how it works, isn't it? That's the way it works. Okay. So, you know, we've been talking about a lot of things. And so, Tony, I heard you passionately talking about J2 during the break. For the people in Montague, J2 is problematic. It's where it's always seeming to be a problem because of the soil conditions.
Yeah.
So what you thinking at that point? Driving some long sheet piles and going from there?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that, either that or the combination of rocks and soil, and, you know, we've been messing around with that for quite a while, and that seems to be, you know, that's what we always talk about. We flood from east to west. Well, that's where we usually flood, and we have some redundancy there, thank goodness. But some of that redundancy on the inside is you know, some sheet pile that they've driven, plastic sheet pile. We really need to improve J2. And we've been trying, we've been hauling soil, but we need to do something even a little different than that.
You know, we joke with Mitch all the time, because Mitch always says, y'all always get on and nobody gives me a plug, and he says it jokingly because he's not really looking for it.
Yeah.
But we got to give him a plug.
Oh, yeah.
For helping out Montague yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you.
Yeah, wait, let's bring some video in, Jade. There's J2 right there. So
J2 originally was a marsh management levee built in the late 80s on the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Refuge. So right there you're seeing about a +7 levee, 80, 90 feet wide. Now in the past with the marsh management levee, every storm, of course you'd have many breaches. The fact that we did this, it did overtop, but it acted as a huge speed bump, and it allowed the redundant levees, the parish levees, to hold it back. I mean, it was close, but it helped.
Reggie, give an explanation of some of the issues we had with that basically the canal on one side.
That's
and
right.
The
So-
pipeline situation on the other, and why
So,
some
yeah,
issues.
because when this marsh management levee was originally built back in the 80s, they dug a borrow canal on the inside, and on the outside of much of this, there's a pipeline that runs parallel to the levee. So you sandwich between a pipeline with a canal and another borrow canal. So that's why it's costing a lot of time and money in order to try to build this up, because you're having to really backfill in some horrible soil conditions, hauling. We probably hauled, I guarantee you, in the last 5 or 6 years, full 500,000 cubic yards of material on there.
And we've been backfilling some of that canal.
That's right, that's
That's
right.
what we've been doing with that.
but this shows you the magnitude for people watching. They say, really, are those, you know, most people don't see the levees. They really don't.
Right.
They don't see them.
But
They
this
hear
is
about 'em
this is
during the storm
facing this
event.
is facing Bay Madison when it's all eaten up. So you really, it's really the Gulf of Mexico pounding right directly on here with nothing in front of it. So
Right.
this is absolutely the most vulnerable piece of the whole Morganza alignment.
But as we filmed yesterday, and we were showing the differential in some of those areas, especially right around the Montague area, those flood control structures were holding back 7, 8 feet of water.
I
And
think
right here,
the
this
most
is
I
one.
saw was almost 9.
I actually went out there and filmed this yesterday to show the differential. Look at the debris on one side, on the unprotected side, and then as we pan over, and I guess you can't hear the winds because the mic's not up, but it was popping pretty good. But watch when we pan to the left, and this doesn't really do it any justice, to be honest, because you could see all the stanchions and the supports. You can't see it on the other side. And so these flood control structures, they do their job.
that's
It was
Humboldt
further
Canal.
north where the problem is, right?
No,
It was
it's
further
right.
upstream.
Just east of there. That is the Hummel Canal floodgate.
Right.
Correct.
And that's where we registered 9.09, I think the maximum.
Now, one thing also, that those lilies, now you gotta realize, that's floating on top of water.
Right,
That
correct.
is the water level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
the water level.
That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
grass, that's not ground,
no,
that's the water
no.
level.
Yeah.
I would not attempt to walk on it. I can promise you that. But Congressman Graves, as you look at this and you've seen what Terrebonne and Lafourche has done with levee systems, I bet when you deal with other congressmen across the United States, there's not a whole lot of people that really go this far to take care of themselves.
No, this is, and somebody said it just a couple of minutes ago. People in Homa don't see those levees and don't really understand those levees. All they knew is that water didn't come flood them, but that's why. And so you can imagine if people in Houma don't fully understand that, the disconnect with people from Iowa, New York, Nebraska, California, and that's why I think it's so important to bring people down here. And we've had, just in the few years I've been in Congress, we've hosted close to 40 or 50 members of Congress down here. Just had a Democrat congressman in from California a couple of months ago, brought him down here, showed him the coast, took him out looking at all of the energy infrastructure, the coastal land loss, and helped him to understand it. And of course, he went back and advocated for us in understanding some of the challenges that we have here. But it's going to take, I think, that additional education effort to help people to understand the predicament that we're living in and how aggressive some of the state, local efforts are underway right now to make sure that we can keep these communities safe for generations.
And I gotta say this about our sheriff too in Terrebonne Parish. He is a sheriff, he's been sheriff a long time, but he's also a parish foreman. Because when you need something and going, I know you'll give him a plug, and Tony and,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
Steve and Reggie, when you need something, what, when, and here comes Jerry, just like the cavalry. So,
He was
I mean,
directing
he
traffic.
sort of wears some, what's that?
Reggie just said he was directing
He
traffic.
was directing, he was
I
directing
saw
the,
that
he
yesterday.
was
Oh, yeah.
directing the dump trucks
Oh, yeah.
himself.
Yeah,
But
and you wanted to listen to him, because he'd
still a-
scream at you if you did.
Yeah, he's still a cop, though. He's still a cop, but he does so much more. So I know he takes a lot of heat for some things that he does, but you got to give the guy credit that whatever it takes, that sort of mentality I saw yesterday, whatever it takes, let's just get it done.
Anything you asked him for, you never got no or maybe. He made the call, they were on their way, no matter, just about whatever it was. And so, I mean, he was instrumental in this whole thing.
We needed inmate, he said, how many? 30, 40? Tony says, bring him 40. Bring 'em 40.
You
We
know,
had
Bob,
40 inmates.
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
moved from area to area, soon as you turn around, there was Jerry. And you had a bunch of police cars, with the sheriff cars with you. And like I said, he wasn't only law enforcement, he was construction. He was road direction.
Right.
He was giving you what he thought was his advice what to do here and now.
Right.
And
night they
of
helped
course,
me
when we
out
made the
Sunday, all night.
decision to mandatory evacuate everyone, me and him made that decision.
Right.
When we did the curfew the night before, we both decided on a time, and we both concurred that because, he's the one that's gotta send the police cars out there along with Chief Coleman. Who, by the way, Chief Coleman did a wonderful job doing this.
Yeah.
His HPD, which is under
Yep.
me, was everywhere as everywhere we need them to be, and actually they were down the bayous. I mean, we had HPD down Delorge, and they were
And
they
not
were
to mention the
assisting.
fire personnel that just,
Oh, yeah.
every storm
right.
we've ever covered that we ride, it's, they're trained to put out fires. But boy, they do so much more. I mean,
Boy,
so much more.
all the fire departments, when we down Montague, if a tree was in the way, you wouldn't wait 5 minutes. That tree was cut and it was winched away. Down Delorge, same thing with Quentin Lyon, with Toby Henry down Chauvin and down Montague, yeah, and Portishead and Thibodeau,
Marty Thibodeau.
Marty Thibodeau, yeah, from Chauvin, he was there. I mean, and like I said, all the fire departments, Bayou Cane, Coteau, and Treva, and it really, a lot of people think they sit home or they sit in the building waiting for a fire. They do a lot more than that. They really do.
Well,
They were there on everything we were on.
In the Montague Fire Department, the night of the storm, 1 o'clock, they got a call on the Pontiac Road, a tree was down, crossing the road. In the middle of the storm, they ran out there. Now, this tree, probably 3 foot in diameter. They cut that tree out the road, pushed it on the side, went back to the station. An hour later, about 200 feet from that tree, another tree, they got called back out. They ran back out in the street and all that weather. Cut that tree off the road just to have back. And fortunately, we was able to get down Pontiac and do what we had to do in Pontiac because of that.
But Tony, let me ask you this too, because I wanna give Congressman Graves some kudos here too. Because how is it to work with a congressman, first of all, that shows up at a TV station, comes sit on the desk, doesn't have an entourage, he just comes and tries to get it done, and he's been in the trenches before. He's been at the budget levels, he's been on the ground. He
Right.
knows what y'all are coming at for.
Right.
That makes a big difference that he understands what we're sitting up here today talking about, because he's been at the level. He's been at that level, funding that and getting it done and making decisions.
and so you're gonna ask me to give him kudos?
I should have given him
And wait,
kudos.
so what was that share? What's the share that we're gonna get with the savings for the federal government again? And then we'll
Kudos
carry on with
cost,
that. Where we going?
Hey, Jimmy
No.
Cantrell asked me 50%.
We could up it to 60
No,
hour.
but let me tell you, Garrett, and, you know, I've called a spade a spade. You know, Garrett was very instrumental in this whole process being
Exactly.
started. He was chairman of the CPRA under General's regime, and it took us a while to be able to coordinate where we would be able to spend that quarter cent and have the state match us dollar for dollar. And that was the start of us being able to move forward, start building projects with that money. And then, of course, as we got going, the parish to pass an additional tax for us to continue and get to the point where we are right now, where we're even talking about this. So, you know, I call a spade, and he has really been instrumental in the past. And if he can ever get that federal cost share like we're talking about right now, he's really gonna go over the top.
Yeah.
Well, look, Tony, I appreciate it. Also, I want to say that to your left, you had the chairman of the Senate Natural Resources Committee. To my left, we had the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sure.
these guys were fantastic to work with.
Yeah.
And as soon as we agreed to give them, I think, $200 million, they let our bills go. So, I mean, no, look, you know, you also had Jerome Zarang, who worked with us at CPRA. And when you look around the state, this is one project, and I said this earlier, this is one project that has really just gotten the shaft from the federal government for way too many years. And it has been admirable watching the parish government, watching the levy district, and everybody step up and make sure that this project move forward. And if you know, just like you did when you were flood fighting during the storm, you stepped up and you did what had to be done, right, wrong, or indifferent. You fixed it. And in this case, the federal government, I think, has made multiple mistakes in neglecting this project for as many years as they had. And so we did get together because we knew it was the right thing to do to put up. And I mean, it's pretty remarkable. This is the greatest, and I hope people in Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes understand this. This is the largest investment of flood protection of any non-federal project in the state of Louisiana, period,
Right.
in history. $420 million called together with of course, the millage, the sales tax. We've pulled together, gosh, I think 3 or 4 different federal funding streams, state capital outlay dollars, the coastal trust fund monies. I mean, heck, we did bake sales, you name it. Everything
Yeah.
we could do to
Right.
find to pull money together. The parish put money in a number of times as well, and it really has been remarkable seeing this thing pull together to get $420 million without having the Corps of Engineers at the table.
But let me ask you this, because Tony, I remember after that first tax failed years ago, we were sitting down one night, and everybody had their head in the soup bowl going, what? It failed. We kept going. And now people get a chance to see where their taxes, a lot of people high and dry. The only thing they were worried about today, and once again, not for the people that had water in their house, very few did. When's my power gonna get turned on? That's a whole lot different than
Right.
my house has a
That's
lot
right.
of water in. So they get to see now where the tax dollars actually have gone and guarded. That's big when you're spending people's money.
That's right, Martin. You know, and to reiterate what Garrett just said, and he's talking about the money that came there. Then if we jump to the BP money that's coming to fruition now, like the $400 million lock system. Garrett was chairman of CPRA at the time. I sat on CPRA, and that's $400 million. That was out of the first $1 billion pot. We were there to grab it. Remember, Blade Morris grabbed it for his area, and it was so at that time Cameron had got about $400 million, and we had got $450 million out of the first pot that came out of BP. And now you're seeing it go to fruition. We actually started dredging this year, so the construction actually starts this year on that project that was started. What was that, about 7 years ago? 7, 8 years ago, and plus other projects. The Barrier Islands, they finally went to bid on it. That started back then, and it's $161 million coming to fruition.
Hey, let
And
me
so
ask,
that's BP money.
No, but that, I mean, that project started way more than 7 years ago. I mean, I think we started getting a little traction 7 years ago, but there were efforts back in the mid-nineties to try and get that one moving.
I'm gonna have to make the students at the end of the class behave over there. No, let me ask you this, when we're talking about the western part of the parish and the vegetation,
That's right.
what would it have been like without vegetation on that western side, what y'all were dealing with yesterday?
Well, one of the things, advantages is on the western side, the fact that the Bayou Chene temporary gate was put in by St. Mary really helped because the Atchafalaya River did spike.
Right.
It got to nearly 9 feet above sea level. But the fact that the Bayou Chene barge was in, and we had the Gibson barge in, we never got above a 1.2, I believe, in Gibson, and never really had a surge there because of the activity we did on the high river emergency. You know, one thing I'd like to point out, just overall observations, and Jack Moore reminded me of this 2 days ago with my finance chairman. He's been on board commissioner since the same time as Tony 15 years ago. I said, Jack, what got you interested in flood protection? He says, I'm gonna tell you what got me interested. He said, Hurricane Lily, 2002, and Tropical Storm Bill, 2003. He says, he went to South Lafourche right after, and they were back to normal commerce, normal business. People were, you know, going back to the, doing their normal business. He says it took weeks or months to recover in the Montague area, the Chauvin area after these storms. He says,
While you're
that-
talking, I wanna roll in some tropical storm Bill, the levee break, there in Bill, they put Montague
right.
underwater. We'll get that going. in a
But
second.
that's, but if, so, the fact that I've always been also a little envious in South Lafourche, they could, you know, go back to normal business the next day.
There's Bill. right
Yeah,
there.
the next day they could go back to right, now, today, here we are the day after, or the, really, it's day of still, people's back to normal business. They were having masses in churches this morning, and tomorrow people's going back to work. Most of the houses are not flooded. We've always made we tried to make a conservative estimation that what we could survive. So as I always said, if we had a Hurricane Ike or Rita, we'd probably about 90% effective. Now, I didn't want to test it. When they told me 4 to 6 feet, I said, well, we're not gonna really get to that level, but we did. So when you have 15 or 20 homes that flooded, when it was over 2,500, that is a 99% success rate. Now, the only, unfortunately, being we not completed in Lafourche Parish, you had a 1.5 mile gap with no protection. And I'm a native of Pointe-au-Chien, and, you know, bothers the hell out of me that out of the 5 bayous in Terrebonne, the only bayou that had any flooding was Pointe-au-Chien because it's the parish line, and the Reaches K&L is not complete. You probably will not be complete for at least another 2 years because the flood gate has to be built, and there's about a 1.5 mile gap that has to be finished. That we have, where we have interconnectability. So you had about 10 or so homes in Pointe-au-Chien that flooded. But no, I went yesterday about noon in Pointe-au-Chien. I told my business partner down there who bought my old house and store. I said, you know, I just went down here. We had a 9-foot tidal surge this morning, and nobody in Pointe-au-Chien flooded. Well, what happened? It didn't come around. So no flooding in Terrebonne side because all the levees held. It came around as backwater flooding on the Lafourche side. It came through, it reaches K&L and the gap that's not built yet. So you did have about 10 houses flood, but if it would have been equal to Rita or Lily, you would have probably had about 300 structures would have flooded, not 10, just in that community. The store that my father built in 1965 or so for Hurricane Ike had 27 inches of water in it. It had no water in it, none. The house that my father built in '67 that my business partner now owns was flooded 5 times, had 0 water in it on a surge that was equal to the worst that we've ever seen. Now the other bayous, we held back in Montague, and I don't think we had any homes flooded in Montague. We had a couple of sheds, I believe. We might have had one home. In Chauvin, no flooding, and Senator Jobert called me, last night, he says, do you realize we're going through a hurricane and Chauvin Brothers has no water in it, and there's no water on Highway 56 where it floods all the time, even for just high tides. We had a zero elevation. It was like a cold front in the bayou. It was over the whole, so much so that, you know, on this adaptive management, what we did in Chauvin, it was better we closed the Boudreaux Canal sector gate, but we cracked it open 2 feet to let the rainwater out, because we let Mother Nature the day before with the north wind buy us so much capacity that we were able to crack the floodgate open, because it was, you know, it was the right thing to do, and we had somebody there to close it if we had to. So you had no flooding in Chauvin, you had no flooding in Grand Caille and Dulac, which has never happened ever in history, and none in Bayou Dularge. It got close in Dularge, we had overtopping, but we were able to react to it. So
But only Brady Road, only a road had water on it, right? No houses.
I'm not sure. I haven't gotten the final report. You might have had a couple of structures. On Brady Road, you had from the west, yes. You did have some overtopping there, too.
Okay.
But at the same time, remember, just like towards Pointe-aux-Champs, on the other side of Pointe-aux-Champs, you've got major construction going on there right now. We
But
finally
that's
have
an old levy
reached,
too, that's the old part.
right, well, we finally have reached Dularge to the west,
Right,
who's
right.
been waiting, and now that we're under construction, you know, you
But that
wouldn't know,
wasn't in the
you're gonna,
Morganza
there's a
footprint,
possibility you're
right?
gonna have some of this.
That's the Morganza footprint, but it's the old,
old levee.
the old drainage levee.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's what was over top. None of
Yeah.
Morganza that was built to Morganza criteria of 12.5 feet and the bases accordingly, none of that was overtopped, or they had no problems with it. And it was just the old drainage levee that was overtopped. But I give the drainage levee credit that it was overtopped and never breached. And we had 1.5 foot of water running over there for a while, for quite a few hours, and,
Yeah.
you know, normally a
Yeah.
levee will breach for that.
Yeah.
And I guess years ago, there's a lot of clay or something they put in that levee that, I was pleasingly surprised it didn't breach.
Yeah, that
you
was
know?
going at pretty hard for about 8 hours.
Yes, yeah. Till we got the rocks and the
Right.
trucks and the track trucks
But I
and the
know I asked this
dozers.
question a lot, if you bring it to, everything gets to 12 feet, and the highest we've had arguably is close to 10.
Right.
I know it doesn't consider a 4 or 5 coming up the Yucatan right at Morgan City pushing water in, but it still stops a whole bunch of water from coming right at you unprotected.
We would have never flooded. If we'd have had that system, we would have never flooded, as far as history
In recordable
can
history.
tell. But
Yeah.
of course, we know things that are sort of falling apart outside quite a bit, so that is probably, you know, not as, but, I mean, we haven't
But
had anything in
Katrina, I
history.
mean,
that-
nobody, all bets are off with a 35-foot, you know, wave
Yeah.
coming at you, but I
Right.
mean, but if you go by history, we'd be okay,
Would've been all right.
we'd be all right.
Yep.
And you know, Martin, when you look at categories, they say category 1, well, that's not a bad storm, a bad hurricane. It is if it's pushing 9 foot of water in front of it.
It's a push barge.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
A category 1 is a 75-mile-an-hour wind with a category 3 or 4 storm surge. You know, they almost should split them up
But
into
look how big the
two
storm
separate
was.
categories.
It went
you
over the
know?
whole Gulf on land. If you compare it to Rita, that was tight and concise and moving. Rita was 170 miles away from us to the
That's right.
west, still pushing a 9, but this storm was so big when it started, it piled water on us, and
Yeah.
can't get away from it,
It
you know?
started from the United States down. Has there ever been a
I don't know.
hurricane started from the States and came into the Gulf?
I don't
I
recall.
mean, I
one
don't know of one, you know?
I know
It's-
Betsy did a loop-de-loop, and of course, I was
It
5
started
years
in-
old.
Started
Gordy,
in
you were
Napoli
20
from
at that time. So where do we go from here?
Martin,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to leave because I've had several calls from the operations manager, but before I go, we're able to pull up some of the floodgates. So
I'd
we-
like to see that, yeah.
We have 7-day data, because it's beyond 24 hours now from the highest we've had. So if we can pull up the Humboldt Canal floodgate, I'm gonna go east to west on 5 of the 10 gates that we have all this electronic data on. So this is Humboldt Canal. You can see right there, I'm not making up the 9 feet. Look, you can, maximum stage, 4 AM yesterday morning, 9.09 at that floodgate.
Wow.
And so that's when it spiked up, which happened to be the same time I woke up and got in a panic when I seen 9 feet of water in Montague.
Look at that.
So, okay, so next, let's go to Bayou Terrebonne floodgate. This is a 7-day data, so you can see Bayou Terrebonne got to 8.36 at 4:36 yesterday morning. That's when it spiked.
That's a lot of water.
Now, next, we go on the Bush Canal floodgate. This is where we had the biggest differential at Bush Canal. Bush Canal, you have 8.22 feet at 4:24 yesterday morning, and on the inside, it was below zero. It was minus 0.45. We were holding, it was below sea level.
So it
On
was
the
holding
inside.
9 feet of water.
It was holding 9 feet of water back. And this is the Bush Canal floodgate. Next one we have is the Bayou Petit Caillou floodgate near Cocodrie. It got there 7.29, and that's the most southern part of Morganza. And that one's generally about the same as the HNC Bubba Dove floodgate. You don't have those anomalies where you have water hitting from the side. That's due south. And I don't know if we lost something here. The next one we had was the HNC Bubba Dove floodgate.
He's gonna log back on the HC.
But it got to about 7 point, also about the same as Cocodrie. So that Bayou Petit Caillou and the HNC gives you the true surge levels, because you don't have any anomalies of walls that's hitting. That's the true Gulf of Mexico levels, which was a little less than 7.5.
It's computerized. There's nobody with a pencil going, well,
That's
let's
right.
round it off.
No, it's
Yeah.
exact. And look, we have these gauges we have these electronic gauges at 10 out of our 13 floodgates. So that's how you can make emergency decisions quickly. The parish government has the SCADA and the telemetry system on pump stations. So besides leaning forward on protecting on hurricane protection and all, I think Terrebonne Parish is also ahead of the curve on using this
Bring
kind
up
of
Bubba
data,
Dove again, I think they got it.
technology.
So this is the big
7.3.
ship channel coming in, so yeah.
Now, if you 7.29 feet at what time? 3:36 yesterday morning.
About 57 miles or 56.8 miles.
Yeah,
an hour wind speed.
nearly 57 miles an hour winds, maximum winds at that location.
I live on the Intracoastal. It's the first time I've ever seen where the Intracoastal just
Didn't rise at
didn't
all.
move.
Yeah.
Didn't move. It's unbelievable.
Now, if this floodgate wouldn't be there, you would have had about 50 or 60,000 cubic feet per second of water headed to Houma.
Right.
And we're filled up there in the coastal.
Oh, yeah. And I think I saw it.
Plus the
It
Bayou
was full
Shane.
for
You
Andrew,
add the
but-
Bayou Shane into that, you're talking about some more.
Yeah.
It's huge, again, to be able to fight the outside and not have to continue to fight the inside the whole
But
time.
it disturbs me to think that if we had that open from the ship channel with the Chafalaya situation in the west, without that board, with those two dynamics coming together at the same time, what we'd have went through. Because I don't know if we ever had that dynamic working together before. It scares me. It really does.
And then more, then you add Lower Delorge, which is, that's the lowest part of Delorge. We had 8-foot levees with at least 1 or 1.5 foot topped. So you had 9 feet down there. Of course, we didn't have a gauge, but we know those are a little bit over 8 foot of levees because we were fixing to lift them to 12 feet. So then you go further west, which got a little closer to that hurricane. We jumped back up to 9 feet, right around the Delorge area, and of course that's where we had our overtopping that we were able to stop.
Yeah, let's do this. I'll give everybody the floor for a little while so we can wrap up. I appreciate everybody spending their time. What is it? It is Sunday, yeah. I lose track of days during every day is the same day during a hurricane, all right? So we'll start off with Reggie Dupre, and we'll work down, because I know you have to leave for another meeting, and I'll give the congressman the floor last, okay?
Okay, just want to thank everybody for their cooperation. I mean, having the parish, the levy district, the state, and congressional delegations all working together, we saw the effects of it. We had a real test of the system, and it needs to get better. We need to raise up and do something with the levees J2. We need to finish between Cutoff and Pointe-au-Chien. And then Lower Dularge. I just want to mention on one, we've talked about Lower Dularge technically is not in the Marganza alignment. But we made a commitment back in 2012 when we passed that half-cent sale tax that we would not abandon the people of Lower Dularge. You have probably 800, 900 people living south of Fagel Canal and Bayou Dularge. Being we had an old floodgate at the bottom of the ridge and a ring levee on each side, we knew that it would be relatively easy but expensive to try to protect them. So that's the strategy we've taken. It's going to take a few years unless we get some significant dollars to completely encircle that bottom peninsula, but I think it's worth saving. And yesterday we seen nobody flooded down there with 9 foot of water.
Right, very good. Tony?
Things are getting better. We still have a ways to go. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. It's, again, it's so good to see everybody come together. The sheriff's office, the parish, the levee board, everybody working together, and it's kind of good for your soul, to see everybody pulling together and making things happen. And we're gonna continue doing that. It's been an honor to serve as the levee board president. And we have a lot of work left, but we're gonna make it happen. We're not gonna quit. And Garrett's gonna get us that cost share from the feds, and I think we'll be able to finish probably a little bit faster than we thought.
I'm in.
Putting you on the spot.
I'm in.
I know you in. Yeah, so we finally have it looks like the Corps, I think Garrett would agree with this, the Corps looks to be coming around a little bit, We've got some great people in key positions, and I'm real excited about that because they're really starting to engage, and even that reevaluation that took place was huge from a cost benefit standpoint, and actually be able to afford to really do it. And so, just everybody keep listening to the sheriff's warnings and the parish warnings, and don't get real confident, and know what we just went through was very testy.
And it's July, yeah.
And it could have been a lot worse. So let's just stay the course and just try to speed it up a little bit,
Can
right?
I just make Gordy feel real happy? Can you mention what they put on top of that levee in Dularge that would really make Gordy's day? What did they put?
Let's see. Wasn't Gordy Dove standing on it, you
No,
mean?
rocks. Rocks. Garrett, how many times have you heard
I thought you were
rocks?
talking about that funny picture.
It
Yeah,
was a good picture.
right.
Rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Golly, how many
Yeah.
times we heard
Oh, I
rocks?
know.
Rocks
And
work.
that's starting to happen a little bit. I would even go as far as to say this. We're interviewing a few scientists right now. We hear from the scientific community all the time about this model and that model. They didn't include this or that. Well, we're gonna start getting some of our own models
We found
for
out some of the
Terrebonne
models
Parish.
are phony.
Right,
Yeah.
and we're gonna start, I'm not, well, yeah, without going into all that.
Right.
We're gonna start, we're interviewing folks to start running models based on, what takes place with this storm, with this situation, what we have in place, what we're going to have in place, the rock situation that Gordy always battles, right? Not having rocks to protect the barrier islands. And some other issues that we count on other people to do. And when we go sit at a table to discuss what's going on, the one thing we have missing is a scientist to discuss it with scientists and their opinions.
Right.
And so we're even fixing that right now. So we're gonna do it right.
That's not a bad approach when you
No.
think about it.
No, it's
Steve?
not.
Well, I just want to kind of hit on one thing that both Gordy and Tony mentioned, the Corps, they seem to be hearing us now. Well, I'm gonna take that a step further. They seem to be listening to us. They've always heard us, they just never listened to us. But I think we got some people in the Corps now, they've had some changes, and we got people actually listening to us and feeling our plight down here, where we at, what we got. And then other than that, there's not a whole lot more that can be said that hadn't been said here through this event. We winding down. It looks like things pretty much worked out for the good of all the people of the parish. Pretty much everybody was spared, save from a few people that did have damages in water to their houses. So I want to go on record just thanking everybody again, firefighters, you know, in my district, you know, Toby Henry, fire chief, and all his crew. Mitch Mormon, his staff, Reggie and the Levy district, you know, Greg and Greg's daddy meant to mention, nobody
Yeah,
mentioned it. He's a
yeah.
90-year-old guy, sat in that dozer all day yesterday,
Yep,
rolled rocks all day, 90 years old.
yep.
Wow.
So, you know, that's the kind of cooperation we got from these guys. You know, that was never mentioned. You know, this is a 90-year-old guy. Firefighters, you know, I mentioned those. The sheriff, Jerry Larpin, like I said, you asked for inmates, he had 40 of them there within an hour. All, you know, deputies, you needed something, you need an escort. We need to escort a dozer a mile down the road. They were out there escorting the dozer there. You know, just everybody helped. I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's just so many people. It's hard to remember everybody. Who else was there? I just went brain dead.
Yeah,
You know,
it's all right.
everybody. I just want to thank everybody for all the efforts they did. You know, Tony and I threw some sandbags, but look, we were a very small part of this whole
Right.
picture. I mean, we you know, everything could have been done without us. The people out there that really did the work, that brought the side by side, that brought the equipment. You know, all the sandbags had to be brought probably a quarter of a mile, and you can only put 10 or 15 sandbags at a time to bring them across because we had to go through swamp and marsh
Yep.
with
But
these.
give yourself a little credit there. I know you said it could be done without you, but you're a leader. Leaders lead, and especially in times like this, to be out there shows
Well,
people that you're there, so we
Well, like I
appreciate
said,
that.
no, I just want to thank those guys, and I want them to know that their efforts haven't gone unnoticed, and, you know, I appreciate everything they did.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Parish
Yeah.
President?
Well, you know, Martin, you
Oh,
know,
excuse me, let me say one more thing, and Martin, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you and HTV. You know, y'all have done a bang-up job as long as you've been in business, you know, as long as HTV's been open for every storm. And this one was no different. So thank it and keep it up. We appreciate
yeah,
it.
thank you, Steve.
you know, Martin, there was a collaboration among everyone from our EOC being organized to, you know, we had a plan, we moved it forward, we implemented it, working with, like, you know, they've mentioned everyone, I don't have to mention it again, working with the levy board and all, you know, the councilmen, I mean, the councilmen and women were fantastic. While we were down there, you had Alana Williams, Steve Pondville and them. Alana Williams was checking Chacahoola, Gibson, and Deadwood because we were watching those waters to make sure that Chacahoola didn't play a game on us
Right.
with the way the storm was acting. And, you know, we had each of the councilmen and women checking their prospective districts. I had Steve Pondville and, you know, really watching carefully on Bayou Cane and Broadmoor area. And, you know, we had representation in there from our office and making sure that everything and anything we could do. And there again, I want to thank you and, you know, yourself, the media. You kept the people informed. You stayed up here. You called me at 4 o'clock in the morning for updates. And, I mean, things rolled. And I just thought, I think it went as smooth as could be. And it's 10 people or 12 people, or when we get our reports that flooded, my office, Steve's office, Steve Trosclair's office, you know, anything and everything humanly possible we could do to get you back to where you were before the flood. We will do everything within our government means to do that and get you rolling again. But it really was to be out there. I mean, you know, we had a problem in Montague, we solved it. We had a problem in Delorge, we solved it. We had a problem at the marina, we solved it. And, you know, we had some hiccups along the way, but everyone came together and equipment moved and people moved, and it was great to see organization in a life that Terrebonne Parish has never seen, in a levee system that proved itself that Boganza is the proper way to go. And I want to thank Garrett Graves. The people sit here and the ones that already left know how instrumental Garrett's been in this. When he was chairman of CPRA, when we asked, he made sure it was delivered. A lot of projects coming to fruition today was from his tenure. When he was on CPRA, I've been on CPRA, Reggie's been on CPRA, Norby's on CPRA. Jerome Zerain was his vice chairman on the CPRA. Now we have Tanner McGee on CPRA. So we really have had a monopoly on CPRA.
Yeah, and everything
Which-
runs through
And
CPRA.
that CPRA
Yeah.
is the money child, you know, so it's just a long time coming. We still have a long way to go. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it that we have everything solved. Now we're moving into a lock in the HNC, $400 million in BP Restore Act money. Of course, the parish is building a lock in the Petit Caillou, about 4 more months, and one in Bayou Terrebonne. So it's all coming together, and then we have to keep lifting levies. So thank you for what you've done, Martin, and everyone at this table. Some of them have left. I noticed John Navy has left. He's been instrumental in every step of the way, and my 8 councilmen and women have really been by us, been with us every step of the way, and I want to thank them.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Parish President. We appreciate it, and just for the record, don't call me at 4 this morning. Let's go get some sleep. Can we? Because before I turn it over to the Congressman, I want to show you. I want to show you Grand Isle right now that I punched up on our camera in Grand Isle, and check Grand Isle out. Isn't that a good sight?
Oh,
Yeah, buddy.
No wind, just the surface
Beautiful.
laid down, and it's looks pretty. I know the mayor feels good about
Yeah.
seeing that.
good guy.
Yeah.
So I want to turn it over to Congressman Gary Graves, who's really been instrumental over the years. I used to always hear, before I even knew who he was, yeah, well, we got to check with Gary Graves, or we got to go through Gary Graves. Well, here's Congressman Gary Graves, and thank you for what you've done through the process.
You bet, thank you. You know, Martin, it's pretty amazing to see all the people that are at the table now, the people that were here earlier, Councilman Navy and Reggie Dupree and others. Everybody's saying the same thing, and it doesn't matter if I call Councilwoman Williams, if I call President Dove, if I call anybody, you're gonna hear the exact same thing. Everybody here is lined up on this project and has been pushing, and when the federal government said no, everybody came together and said, well, we're not gonna take that as an answer, and did everything they could to make sure that this project's in place. And you can't say this enough. The reason the lower part of the community anyway didn't flood, the reason probably parts of Houma didn't flood, is because of the initiative that people at this table and people before us took to make sure that we had a project in place, to make sure that we had a levy in place. And so the sales tax dollars that y'all are committing, the property tax, the millage, and all of the state money and other federal dollars we've been able to bring to the table, it has been invested. Here is your return on investment. It's gonna keep paying off. Number two, the statistics from this storm being able to show how we just saved $500 million, saved federal taxpayers $500 million. Being able to take that back to Washington and to some of the folks that I work with up there and help them to understand how big of a deal this is and how we're not contributing to that $1.7 trillion that has been spent on disasters over the last few decades. We're actually saving money, and we need a little bit more money each year to help continue building this levee system and raising this levee system. And so I want to thank all the folks here for coming together and doing the bulldozer action, the rocks, the sandbags, and everything y'all did, because you did what needed to be done in order to make sure that that one section didn't fail and that the community stayed dry. Lastly, we're working on flood insurance reauthorization right now. And Congressman Scalise, myself, and others, we were able to fight off initiatives over the past 3 years to try and raise flood insurance rates in this very community to $10,000 a year, $12,000 a year, and more. And right now, we've got the bill that's moving through the process that is in the best shape that it's been in since, at least in the few years I've been there, that is going to recognize the levees that were built and make sure that rates are adjusted in accordance with that. To make sure that we don't have these outrageous increases in price and insurance premiums, because if you're paying $1 on your flood insurance, it means $1 you're not paying, you can't pay to your mortgage. It devalues homes. And so, you know, just in summary, I want to say thanks to everybody here. I want to say thanks for people not accepting no as an answer and continuing to move forward. I want to say thanks to the people who sat there and did the flood fight, and it didn't matter if you were the parish president, if you were the sheriff, if you were the levee district president, council member, you were out there side by side with as you mentioned, inmates and other community members, a 90-year-old guy on the dozer, everybody just saving the community. So thank you all for doing that. We're not going to let this be ignored or be for naught, and we're going to take this back to Washington and keep working on getting substantial federal investment to where we can cut a ribbon on a finished project.
That's it.
So,
Right.
thank you.
And finally, as we close, I'd like to once again thank the public, because you passed the tax and you got this done. And I know Gordy wants to reiterate that. You the one that went to the ballot box and passed the tax to do these levies, and we're sitting here today not chasing water in Terrebonne Parish because of that.
And more, and I forgot to, as of tomorrow, between myself and the council, we're gonna do a temporary waiver of all fees related to all building permits, commercial and residential, cause a lot of residential permits don't cost you anything anyway, for any and all, and that's also trades, which meaning electrical, air conditioning, and plumbing, for all repairs for damages arising from and directly associated with Hurricane Barry. So all fees will be waived as of tomorrow, and now you still have to get a building permit, because we have to make sure you follow the state building code.
Right.
So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank
But
you.
thank y'all very much, and once again, thanks to police officers, first responders, fire personnel, and state police that were on the roads, making sure everything went well. Thank y'all very much for what y'all do each and every storm, and to the parish workers and everybody that have to go out, hospital workers that have to go out in times like this. We appreciate you joining us. We'll go back to regular programming, and this will re-air again tonight. We'll run it in its entirety, because I think this was an educational platform that everybody needs to hear and see. So enjoy a couple hours of regular programming. We'll be back. Thank you for joining us.